शान्तार्थविभासकाय गुरवे शान्ताय सन्न्यासिने नानावादी नगेन्द्रसङ्घपवये योगीन्द्रवन्द्याय च मोहध्वान्तदिवाकराय भगवत्पादाभिधां बिभ्रते तस्मै भाष्यकृते नमोऽस्तु सततं पूर्णाय बोधात्मने। In the 48th verse of the second chapter, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, yoga-sthaḥ kuru karmāṇi saṅgaṁ tyaktvā dhanañjaya siddhy-asiddhyoḥ samo bhūtvā samatvaṁ yoga uchyate. Here we come across the definition of yoga, one definition of yoga, and which is 100% applicable to karma yoga. We all are aware that propelled by our own desires, we are thrown into action. Now, each person seems to be acting and working so relentlessly in this world only with the sole purpose of wanting to fulfill his desire, whatever may be the desire or desires, with varying degrees of intensities. And so this person now, he sees that his action is the means to fulfill the desire. Now, over here, whenever an action becomes the means, and now this is the only thing to which we are acquainted, and that is to see the action as the means of desire fulfillment. Okay. Bhagavan Shri Krishna is changing the entire chemistry of this alchemy, of this action. And now he says that since whenever an action is meant for desire fulfillment, obviously that action will bear its own result in form of the object that is desired, or the circumstances in which the object can be experienced. Now that means that this person is then bound by the result of that action and by the action itself to experience the result, to be the experiencer and the doer. So the doership and experiencership thus continues. And that experiencership necessarily means that one discovers himself as somebody who is incomplete, unfulfilled, in different words, dissatisfied in some way. So do not see that no matter whatever is the result of the action, whether it is power, position, progeny, wealth, women, men, whatever that person may be desiring, including heaven, celestial world, whatever he may be desiring, and then he also follows the course of action which is in tandem with what he wants to achieve. Because very often we want to have sukham. Always we want to have some form of happiness. And now, in whatever that you have invested your happiness in, if you have invested your idea of happiness is in having progeny, in having wealth, in having popularity, in having recognition, in having position, in achieving some heavenly world, celestial world, so on and so forth. It could be anything in which the person has invested his happiness. Now, he is bound to, he may desire it, but the course of action that he follows is extremely wrong. And instead of getting what he desires, he lands in experiencing more misery. So, this relationship of right action with the goal that is desired, in our childhood, we used to have these exam papers, and then there used to be two columns, match the columns. Okay, match the columns. So we make wrong matches. So the person does papa and wants to have sukham. How then will your life be? You are following the course of unrighteousness, desiring sukham. Righteousness, dharma, or the dharma is the way for the ordinary sukhas. Ordinary in the sense worldly, otherworldly, etc. In some form of object. But that also means that the person will be bound to live as this ego. And life of the ego itself is misery. It takes a little while for a person to truly realize the substance of this statement. Okay. So now, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, when a person now has come to the conclusion, there is, because if we are not able to reach conclusions, draw understanding from our own experiences, the experience is a wastage. Whatever that experience may be, experience of success or failure, experience of gaining respect or being insulted, if that experience has left you more wiser than before, then that experience has arrived as a blessing because it came as a teacher to teach. But if we haven't learned from our own experiences, then it is very difficult. Because when a person refuses to learn, understand from his own experiences, you tell me which other teacher can be more powerful than that? Okay. So the person now sees and he understands that putra, vitta, loka, etc., all these things which are seen by the general people as sources of happiness, security, etc. Don't people see wealth and progeny, popularity, position, recognition as sources of happiness? People do see, people do consider. There is that, and most of us, 99.9% of people, for them, this is a fact. Patthar ki lakeer hai. Like a line carved in a stone. Not in a sand that it can be easily. That firm people are. to have family, children, wealth, all these things, then people consider. But now, a thinker is a person, the one who has become contemplative due to his experiences and observing the experiences of people around him. Now, when he comes to the conclusion that whatever it may be, putra, vitta, or loka, it may have some joy in it, but it is also not free from misery. So your joy is overshadowed by misery over there. I will give you an example. Even if Bhagavan incarnates as your own progeny, even when Bhagavan incarnates as your own progeny, it still becomes a source of misery. Is not that true? And we are expecting that our children and our relatives and our people and my husband and my wife should not make me unhappy. They may not do it willingly, but circumstances will prove them to be the sources and the causes of your misery. There cannot be a son like Bhagavan Ram. Bhagavan Ram, by all means, in every aspect of human life, proves to be the ideal person. So also for Kausalya and Dashratha, he is the ideal. There cannot be a son like Ram, including Kaikai. But now, Rama's going away in exile was the cause of Dashratha's extreme grief, that this grief killed the father, Dashratha. So even if Bhagavan also incarnates as the son, this is what will happen. Then how do you expect these ordinary people who are ignorant and they are themselves the victims of their own desires and ambitions and idiosyncrasies to not to be the source of your misery? Then we are knocking on the wrong doors, aren't we? कैसे नहीं होगा? The very expectation itself is wrong. Now, even if there is a wife like Sita, who's totally doting, loyal, beautiful, everything that can be desired in a woman to be as a partner is there in Sita. But look at Rama's life. Rama becomes unhappy when Sita is abducted. And later on, even when Sita has to live in exile, the viraha means the pangs of separation were clearly visible. And this was the purpose of that avatar, to show that even the most ideal, what can be considered as ideal relationship, as an ideal person, as an ideal woman, also cannot be. Life of samsara, life in the samsara is dukkha. And therefore now this person he who wakes up from this infatuation of anatma padartha, a person infatuated with the entire range of anatma vastu, putra vitta lokadi, then he wakes up and he says, may I be free from this. I want nothing of these. And so, now, when a person really gathers this courage, and it is not courage, it is your clarity of understanding. It is not even your conviction, it is not somebody convincing you. It is purely your clear understanding, observation of this world and worldly life. And therefore the person says, I do not desire any of these karma phalas, because this is what is the range of the karma phala, putra vitta loka. I desire nothing of these. Then, sir, what is it that you want? I want moksha, for which knowledge is the means. But for such knowledge also to take place, one requires purity of mind. The mind should not be heckled by any other desires, because the impressions of these desires do not think that they, this is where we go wrong. We consciously come to the conclusion, and consciously one will have to come to this conclusion, that I do not want putra vitta loka. Yet subconsciously, unconsciously, these desires are so deeply rooted in the psychology that this person himself is not really aware of what is lurking in those dark corners of the psychology. And unless and until all these things are taken care of, till then, even the attempts to gather knowledge, to gain knowledge, will be hampered, will be obstructed. I'm not saying it will become fruitless. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Every effort, every small little step that you take over here is journey continued towards your destination. No matter how small is your step, yet you're closer to the destination that by that effort. Therefore, nothing ever goes waste. Shri Krishna Bhagavan has assured you this. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhaya. In the 6th chapter, Bhagavan himself will say, Nahi kalyana krit kaschid durgatim tata gacchati. My dear Arjuna, Nahi kalyan, anything that you have done, strived on this path, will ever be wasted. Durgatim tata nagacchati. Tata is an address of endearment. Hey Tata, O Arjuna, nothing of this will ever go waste. Therefore, now the person consciously comes to the conclusion that I do not want all these things. Yet, in order to settle everything that could be there and that is there in the psychology, now he will have to undergo the process of karma yoga. And therefore, what is this yoga is being told to us over here in these verses. yoga-sthaḥ kuru karmāṇi, then how are these karmas to be done if not meant for the achievement of putra vittaloka, progeny, wealth, and celestial worlds, or this world, achievements of this world? Then what is the point of me even striving so hard? Why should I be even doing these actions so sincerely? Because if this is not what I want, why should I even do the actions also? Could be, why should I be even active? Can be a question. And to which Shri Krishna Bhagavan already has said, Mate sangaha astu akarmani, in the 47th verse. Akarmani means in lethargy. In not doing the action, let not there be any attachment to this kind of philosophy of not doing. Doing is required, action is going to continue, but not motivated by putra vittaloka. Then for what? He says, kuru karmāṇi. So in that, do the action, perform the actions. So one will have to stay active. As a karma yogi, he will be very much active. Kuru karmāṇi, do the karma. Injunction is here, kuru karma. But how? Yoga-sthaḥ, seated in yoga. So now this person, established in yoga, centered in yoga, performs the actions. So when does the action become karma yoga? When now the person is established in yoga and outwardly there is the action. And his action is also going to be the same as mundane as ever. I mean, mundane in the sense, the regular actions. You are going to watch this fellow also walk to the office every day as much as your neighbor is going to walk. Both of them are toiling hard and working sincerely. But the neighbor is working hard so that he can have a bigger car next year. This fellow, as a result of his actions, he may also gain more money. He may be able to, but that is not the reason why he keeps striving so hard. For him, now the achievement is not in terms of putra vitta and loka. You understand? Inside, there is a great transformation. And this transformation, the inner transformation, is now he is seated, centered in yoga. What is being centered in yoga? That Shri Krishna makes it clear in the second half of the verse. But in the third quarter of the same verse, Bhagavan says, now this person does the karma as his worship, which means an action that is dedicated as worship of Ishvara. Outwardly, he may be teaching his own children at home, helping them do their homework and, disciplining and all those things, helping his wife and doing things. He could be doing everything that a householder needs to do. But he recognizes now this action is not because he wants to please his wife or just generally raise nice children and good citizens, but this is the way he worships Ishvara. Because this is your relationship with Ishvara is devotion. When you start recognizing your relationship with Ishvara, it is going to be devotion. And this totality, samashtyopahitam chaitanyam, is Ishvara. This totality is nothing but expression of Ishvara, of God. Now, in this totality, you are related to the immediate factors, and these are then your children, wife, whatever that you are in relationship with. Now doing it with this recognition that this is Ishvara. Now the action becomes an action of worship. Tatrapi, here also, saṅgaṁ tyaktvā ishvararadhanārtham. It is meant as worship of Ishvara, but not saying that may Ishvara be pleased with me. It is not even meant to keep God in good humor. Okay, it is not even meant for keeping God in good humor. So God is pleased and propitiated with you. Then for what? Even this is also not expected. He says, this is what I am supposed to do, and this is the only way I can do, and therefore I am doing it. Whether Ishvara should be pleased with me or not pleased with me, that is Ishvara's prerogative. I leave it with Ishvara. Why should I become Ishvara's master and try to manipulate Ishvara? If Ishvara wants, he will be pleased, whatever it may be. But this is how I'm supposed to do, I will do. That's when a person becomes aware of the fact, what is God around him? What is God? Becomes aware of the limitation of putra, vitta, loka, etc. Then his actions and activities and participation with the world, now everything put together, is going to transform the person. From an ordinary person thirsty for this achievements of this world, now becomes a person who is content, becomes a person who is calmer, becomes a person who is collected. And therefore, in such a person, there is an enormous equanimity. And just by becoming spiritual, also remember, friends, it does not mean that viparita paristhiti will not be there. Don't just think that because you are dedicated to Ishvara means that you are never ever going to face, or because you are dedicated to Ishvara means that everything will be conducive to you. This idea of conducive and non-conducive to me are extremely flimsy, are very, very flimsy. Observe it sometimes, it's very funny. That what you call as conducive to you today, tomorrow morning you will wake up and you will say it is not conducive to you. Tonight you may go to sleep saying that, well, I like Chinese food. Next day morning when you wake up with an upset stomach, burping, with acid refluxes, then you say, no. I don't like Chinese food. It just is too much. So now, what is conducive? I'm giving you an example, okay? Nothing like saying that this is what it is. So what you may find conducive today, you may not find it conducive tomorrow. And therefore, to be dictated our life to be dictated by likes and dislikes, with the ideas of what is conducive, what is non-conducive all the time, that means the person will live like a pendulum, like that gong of the pendulum, just swinging. You know, there is that Hindi song, Kuru ki tarah. Ghungru said. Yeah. Ghungru are those, bells that the dancers tie around their ankles. Huh? Indian dancers, the classical dancers, that tie those tiny, bells. The belt is actually, it is a belt on which there are these tiny, tiny, tiny bells. Ghungru. And the thing about this ghungru is that anybody can wear it. And even if anyone wears, they will always wear it in the feet only. Nobody is going to tie that ghungru on the head, crown. That ghungru is always meant over there to be put in the, tied around this thing, ankles. Oh, ghungrus are very nice. Somebody says, my belt, that ghungru belt is very nice. I brought it, I specially got it done. Hey, you got it specially done. Why, expensive than what you find in market. Just because it is expensive, specially made, this woman is not going to tie those bells around the head. Ghungru bajari hai. No, they are always in the foot only. Like that, the person will be always downtrodden, down over there, pendulum. So dictated by likes and dislikes, or these ideas, is like that. So therefore, just becoming spiritual does not mean that something non-conducive will not happen. It simply means that even if the circumstances can be non-conducive, yet the peace of this person remains intact. This is your test of spirituality. Even if it happens, the person now handles it all with a great equipoise. Samatvaṁ yoga uchyate. And therefore, over here, this equipoise is what we are going to say is the yoga. Established in this equipoise, person does the action not motivated by putra vitta loka, but purely as worship of Ishvara is the way to do the action. When this becomes the very anatomy of your action, when this is the anatomy of the action, then it is karma yoga. Then it is called as karma yoga. Okay. Now, furthermore, Bhagavan Shri Krishna draws a picture in which you can see the ordinary karma and the karma yoga on the same canvas. Okay. What I mean is, ordinary karma means karma which the person performs only for putra vitta loka. And now over here, the person performs not for putra vitta loka, but as worship of Ishvara established in equipoise, samatvaṁ. Got it? Now, when this is there, we need to compare, we need to see the contrast, the difference. Because superficially, both of them will be seen as active people. Both of them, a person who is striving in this world to appease the senses or to appease the ego, and a person now who has transformed his understanding about the karma as karma yoga, both of these people will be seen in the world as striving. And so, what is the difference? To understand this difference, we will have to compare them on the same platform. And so now Shri Krishna Bhagavan brings you that comparison in the next verse. Let us chant the verse and try to understand it. Dūreṇa hy-avaraṁ karma, dūreṇa hy-avaraṁ karma, buddhi-yogād dhanañjaya, buddhi-yogād dhanañjaya, buddhau śharaṇam, buddhau śharaṇam, kṛipaṇāḥ phala-hetavaḥ, kṛipaṇāḥ phala-hetavaḥ. Okay. Dūreṇa hy-avaraṁ karma. Now, if you see that in karma yoga, there is predominance or dominance of understanding. Okay. Whether it is understanding the limitation of putra vittaloka, whether it is the understanding of Ishvara, whether it is the understanding of the action as your worship, or whether it is the understanding leading to equipoise. Okay. In all these things, there is a great deal of importance to understanding. Okay. And truly speaking, what else is maturity other than understanding? Please tell. What else? How else will you understand? How else will you define maturity? Just don't bring and try to delete understanding and try to define maturity. What will you say is maturity? What else will you say maturity? Well, you know that equipoise is maturity. But equipoise has come through that understanding only. So if the mother is not there, how will that understanding, how will that equipoise be born? So the prerequisite is understanding. You tell us in what other terms can you define maturity? And if our experiences and every passing day does not take you to a level higher than what you are today, what you were yesterday, then this today was vestige of time. And as Pujyate Yogananji says, nobody wastes time. A person does not waste time. It is wastage of the person. The person is wasted. And when the person is wasted, it means now this person has reduced his own value. When a person reduces his own value, how do you expect that the world should respect you and value you when you do not respect and value yourself? Therefore, every day is an opportunity to become wiser. That is the way you are coming closer to God. Being closer to God is not, oh, I feel God. Because people do that kind of madness too. Just, you know, God is not something to know, something to understand. God is what you feel, and I feel God. And then these people with their idiosyncrasies then become very difficult, adamant, childish people. And this, the credit goes to God for having made him like this. So, anyways, therefore, becoming wiser. So, over here, understanding is important. So, now between karma and karma yoga, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, dūreṇa hy-avaraṁ karma. So now he calls the karma yoga as buddhi-yoga. Okay? He calls this karma yoga as buddhi-yoga. Over here, the word buddhi-yoga is meant to say the karma yoga, because over here, samatva buddhi is one buddhi. Ishvara buddhi is again buddhi, which means understanding. Okay, then the understanding of limitation of the karma phalas, etc., is again understanding. Everywhere there is the importance is of our understanding. And therefore, this is buddhi yoga. Now he calls this as karma yoga as buddhi yoga in the 49th verse. He calls it as buddhi yoga. So this, the karma, which is done only for desire fulfillment, when the karma is the means of appeasement of the ego and appeasement of the senses, then such karma is what? Avaram karma, is inferior. And Krishna Bhagavan is not satisfied in just calling karma as inferior. He says, dūreṇa hy-avaraṁ karma. It is way far inferior. It is way far inferior. Dūreṇa hy-avaraṁ karma. It is not varam. It is how? Avaram. Hy-avaraṁ is actually hy-avaraṁ. So that conjugation, you'll have to look the grammar part. Dūreṇa hy-avaraṁ karma. This karma just meant like this is avaram, and inferior, and not inferior, just inferior, way far inferior than the buddhi yoga. Okay, from the buddhi yoga, then this understanding. And therefore, Arjuna, buddhau śharaṇam anvichchha, seek what? Seek refuge in understanding, in knowledge. Buddhau is not buddham sharanam gacchami type buddham. It is buddhi. the saptami of buddhi will become buddhau. Buddhau, शरणमन anvichchha prarthayasva. Seek refuge, because we all need shelter, under a shelter. But what is your support? What is your shelter? What is your refuge? Understanding, knowledge, intelligence, buddhi is the refuge. Seek this. And seek this means seek to understand. Seek to understand how can you transform the karma into Ishvara's worship. Seek to understand what is this, how is it that this whole world which is spread all around me as animate and inanimate objects and people, beings, is Ishvara expressing around me. Try to understand. Now, this very attempt, this seeking to understand, will make the person somebody who is interested and not killed by boredom. Boredom is one big problem in our life, you know. People are bored. People are lonely. A small child is always engaged. For a small child, for that infant, there is nothing dull about the world. For him, even a small mosquito is also equally interesting. He sees the mosquito fly around singing, and he's what is this that is flying around singing? So he's curious. And that curiosity means he's seeking to understand. So buddhau śharaṇam anvichchha. Seek to understand. Anvichchha means prarthayasva. Prakarshena-arthayasva. Seek with intensity. Buddhau śharaṇam anvichchha. Is it falling down? Buddhau śharaṇam anvichchha. And those who do not do this, but simply are going to use the karma as the means for fulfilling the desires of putra, vitta, loka, and ego appeasement, sense appeasement, etc. Such people are what? Kṛipaṇāḥ. Phala-hetavaḥ. Kripana means, actually Shri Krishna calls them as just people who have missed the opportunity, who had abundance, but they chose to live in poverty. There was a choice of living a life which is so interesting. There was a chance that you could have had discovered God, but you still chose to live as this daridra ego. You were well equipped for this, and that is the reason why every person who is born Every human being who is born has the capacity, he can know the truth, but instead of wanting to knowing the truth, the person simply chooses fun and frolic, ego appeasement and sense appeasement over knowledge. And therefore, such a person is what? Kṛipaṇāḥ. Like a miser who has plenty, he can live comfortably, but he will choose to live in discomfort, only wanting to save. For what? For whom? Now is the question. And therefore, yataha avaram karma kurvānaha kṛipaṇāḥ dīnaha. Such people are what? Pitiable. All that you can now only have is just pity for them. They have reduced their life as only a pitiable. Though he may be a very powerful politician, a very rich man, a big Casanova, it doesn't matter. Yet it is pitiable. Kṛipaṇāḥ phala-hetavaḥ phala-trishna prayuktaha. Phala-hetavaḥ means because they are burdened with their own thirst for objects. Phala-trishna prayuktaha. They are what? They are burdened with the thirst for objects. Okay? Phala-hetavaḥ. And then Shri Krishna Bhagavan saying Kṛipaṇāḥ for these people is not something that comes suddenly from nowhere, but this is how the Upanishad calls these people as Kṛipaṇāḥ. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is said, Yo va etadaksharam gargi aviditva sma lokat praiti sa kṛipaṇāḥ. Hey gargi. Yajnavalkya over there tells Gargi, she is a Brahmavadini. She is a woman who is a Brahmavadini. Who is one of the important women, or not just amongst women, amongst all people, because she can stand and debate and question Yajnavalkya, who in his own time was the greatest teacher, the most celebrated teacher. And she is questioning him. So Yajnavalkya answers Gargi. And in one such dialogue, in one such debate, he tells Gargi about the people who are pitiable, Kṛipaṇāḥ, misers, whose life is wasted. He tells, Yo va etad aksharam Gargi, he Gargi, etad aksharam aviditva, he who asmal lokat praiti, because he who dies, now death is inevitable in each one's case, whether he is an emperor or he is a scholar or he is an ordinary pauper, whosoever it may be, death is inevitable in every case. Then he tells, He who dies without knowing that aksharam, that what is imperishable. He who dies without knowing the imperishable. Why did he die without knowing that what is imperishable? Because he spent all his life chasing only that what is perishable. Because he spent all his life chasing that what is perishable, and therefore he had no time to know what is imperishable. You see, do people don't come up with these kind of excuses? Oh, we can't come and listen to Gita, we can't come and listen to Vedanta, we have no time. But why? Because we want to do some other things. That's all. That's all. And the person may be just watching Facebook, but tell him, come and listen. And he says, no, I have no time. So here he says, hey Gargi, he who knows, he who dies, leaves this world, praiti, leaves this world. Okay. He who goes from this world, a go is capital. He who goes from this world. How? Aviditva, without knowing. Without knowing what? Aksharam, etadaksharam. This, what is imperishable. So this Atma, he who dies without knowing the Atma as Brahman, what happens to him? Sa kṛipaṇāḥ. This person is called as Kripana, Daridraha. Okay. Iti shrutehe. This is so Shri Krishna Bhagavan calling these people who now for whom karma is only their means of desire fulfillment. Such people are Kṛipaṇāḥ. Whereas then therefore how is the karma yogi, or how is the karma yoga? Karma yoga is varam, and this karma is avaram. So the picture is clear. Karma yoga is varam. Varam means higher, superior, and karma is avaram, inferior. And therefore, O Arjuna, buddhau śharaṇam anvichchha. Therefore, you also seek refuge in understanding, in knowledge. Seek that which will transform the karma into karma yoga. Okay. Samatva buddhi, asaṅgaṁ, and not phala-hetavaḥ. When all these things are there, it will make the karma as karma yoga. So thus, okay, that may be the thing, but what is it that will finally happen to such a karma yogi? Let us see what happens to him when we meet next to contemplate on the meaning of verse number 50 of the second chapter in our next meeting. Om. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnāt Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmiti Murti Pheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Mahadev. Thank you all. Thank you very much.